Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Um, we love having our colleagues at the UCLA Easton Center join us for this very important topic of brain health and caregiving. That's such a broad category, but we have one of the best experts and a friend of mine that we've worked with for years. When I was at the Alzheimer's Association, Monica Moore. She's with the Mary Easton Center for Alzheimer's Research and Care at UCLA. Throughout her time there, she helps expand community awareness, education, access to related brain health and Alzheimer's disease. Her work is really focused and rooted in communities, connecting them with research, support services, educational programs. She runs one of the best Alzheimer's caregiver support group that I know of. So we're so glad to have her expertise here. Um, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. Please put yourself on mute so we don't have any rogue, animals or housekeeping in the background. But there will be ample time to ask questions. And after the workshop or the program, Monica will send me her slides and I will then send them to you. And then we'll just have a great discussion. So without further ado, Monica, thank you so much for being here. It's good to see you. Um, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, everyone. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much. I'm very excited about this. I know we have tried for a little while to really get something up and going at with the ERRC. So happy to be able to be here today. As Aisha said, I have been in this field of Alzheimer's disease, especially focusing on caregiving and community outreach for over 20 years now. I've been at the Easton Center here at UCLA for 11 years, and really happy to be able to be here. So I'll share my screen. And really, when I do these presentations, I want to make sure that your questions get answered. And I want to make sure that if you have any questions that you don't leave with the questions. So I want to make sure that we have a dialogue. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat. Lamb, you're able to help out with helping out with chat if there's anything in there? Great, thank you.
Yes, yes.
Nice to meet you, by the way.
Nice to meet
Um,
you
Oh, by
too.
the way, I forgot to even mention, so our department is the campus entity and liaison for all retired faculty and staff. We support 20,000 and growing retired faculty and staff here. We do programs for pre-retirement and then post-retirement campus engagement and education supportive services, which is kind of where this comes in. We started this ERRC Cares initiative back during COVID to give people more information about financial planning, civic responsibility, physical, emotional wellness. That's kind of where we came up. So I forgot to mention that. And Lam Lu is my right-hand person here at the ERRC. So glad to have her. And then that'll be my whole speech. I can leave now. Okay, thank you.
at the Easton Center, I'll give you sort of what our brief breakdown is. So we are in the Department of Neurology. We are a comprehensive care center where we have neurologists who can help with proper diagnosis and proper evaluation of cognitive impairment. We have our researchers who are trying to figure out this Alzheimer's disease, other related dementias. I always call them the super smart people in the labs, right? That's their job. They're doing all the basic science. They're trying to figure out this world. Also looking at it, we have a drug discovery lab where they're trying to find new interventions for Alzheimer's or other dementias. And then we have a very strong clinical trials program, which actually I'll talk about some of the research that we are doing at UCLA at the Easton Center under the clinical trials and clinical studies. And then, as Aisha mentioned, we do have our caregiver support groups. So those are free virtual groups. We offer 10 virtual groups. I manage 9 of those. The one I do not manage is the one that's in Spanish because I didn't pay attention in high school when I should have. So my Spanish is far from good. So I allow the people who are truly bilingual to take care of that group. And we have lots of disease specific groups, relationship specific groups, etc. So if you are a family caregiver, and you're looking for additional support, please reach out to me. I am happy to be able to fold you into one of our groups. And my contact information will be on the slides that are sent out, as well as on the last slide of the presentation. So yes, I'm going to just sort of dive in here. I always want, no matter what my presentation is, no matter where we're at, I like to just do what I call this level setting at the beginning, is just so that people know what is dementia when we use this word, what are we talking about? Um, so dementia itself is a word that describes a group of symptoms. Dementia itself is not a diagnosis. It is simply a word that is describing what is happening. So for dementia, you need to have these two areas of decline. You need to have cognitive decline in one of these domains of thinking, language, memory, judgment, or reasoning, as well as a functional impairment. So, in the functional impairment is, as you see listed here, medications, driving, directions, activities of daily living, preparing your meals, because we see this area of cognitive decline. And yes, as we age, we all experience cognitive decline. It's normal. And it's not so much that we have dementia, it's just that our brains are aging in the same way that the rest of our body is aging. I always remind people, it's like our brains are as old as the rest of you. So if your knees are a little older and you expect your knees to be a little slower, or if you don't expect to run as quite as fast as you used to, it's going to be the same thing with your brain. It is just as old as the rest of you. But this world of dementia is not a normal part of aging. So this is really highlighting when these changes in cognition become greater than what we would say would be every day. So it also has to be a change from your baseline. Again, we all are different. Our brains are all different. What your strengths are different than my strengths. So, you say we know people in our lives who maybe they've always been bad directionally. Like, you, we all have those people who are like, oh my gosh, I've lived in the same house for 10 years and she still can't get to my house without using her maps because it's just the way her brain works. Just because, let's say this woman now at 70 is having a hard time getting to your house, it doesn't mean that it's dementia. It just means that's how she's always been. So it has to be this combination of the two, cognitive decline along with an actual functional impairment. So this word dementia is a word that describes lots of different disease or lots of different diseases fall under this umbrella of dementia. Again, dementia describing the symptoms. So Alzheimer's disease is going to be your most common form of dementia. Underneath that, we have lots of different types. What's listed here is just a sample. Frontal temporal dementia, stroke, vascular dementia, late stage Parkinson's, Lewy body dementia. So all of these have different progressions. They all have different symptoms. They all have different causes. So for somebody to be 75, you go to the doctor because you're having memory complaints and they diagnose you with dementia. Well, it's not a fair or accurate diagnosis because we're still wondering, well, what is it? What's causing that? What's happening here? And so, really, the importance of a thorough and accurate diagnosis to be able to understand what is your progression, what are the symptoms, what are the behaviors, and what can we do about it? Does anyone have any questions on this? No? All right. And if anyone also has questions, you can unmute. We're a small enough group that I'm fine with people unmuting and asking questions. So, as if we were in the same room together, we can pretend that. So, all right. So, I always find it just important to make sure that this is understood because Aisha said, like, I manage lots of caregiver support groups, and I have people in my support groups who are caring for a person with dementia, and they will say, "Oh, well, they don't have Alzheimer's; they just have some dementia, so it's not as bad." We're like, but that's just saying what their symptoms are. So I always feel it's very important to make sure that this is clear.
Question.
Oh, yes, Evelyn. Yes.
Sometimes when you go through menopause, you feel like this is sort of the same symptoms as dementia because
Mhm.
your thinking's different. So how do you know if you're in the early stage and you're still dealing with the menopause, hot flashes at 67,
Mhm.
67?
So, Evelyn, that's a great point. And that is one of the areas of research that's happening a lot. UCLA has the Women's Comprehensive Menopause Clinic, where there is a neurologist who specifically focuses on like women's brains and as we age and the loss of estrogen and how that impacts our cognition. Because, so it's having the conversation with your doctor and it's making sure that your doctor also doesn't dismiss you.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what we're like, oh, don't be like, oh, Evelyn, don't worry. It's just some brain fog. You're going to be fine. You're like, but I'm not now.
Mm-hmm.
So then what are we going to do about it? What do you recommend? Yeah, there aren't any, actual interventions that we can do in terms of take this pill and it'll definitely help. But it's important that things are diagnosed earlier. And I'll talk about some of the reasons why later. Um, but it really is, especially women's brains change in a way that men's brains don't.
Mm-hmm.
And that it is because of the loss of estrogen that occurs during menopause. So it's having the discussion with your doctor and making sure that it's not dismissed and that it is something that's very important and serious to you.
Thank you.
Mhm. So, looking at this world of Alzheimer's disease specifically, it is the leading cause of what we call a neurodegenerative dementia, which means it gets worse over time. It is the fifth leading cause of death in the United States. It is third here in California. Partially just we have a larger older adult population here in California. And so that is going to be the impact of one of some of those numbers. Um, and look at our Alzheimer's risk as we age. For women, it is 1 in 5 after the age of 45. But for men, it's 1 in 10. So again, also looking back to what Evelyn was mentioning is the changes that women's bodies experience is different than anything that men's bodies experience. So how does that impact our brains? And let's just say we have some brilliant researchers at UCLA who are trying to figure this out and trying to really be able to pinpoint it and say, oh, it's blank. But we don't have that yet. But they are, lots of theories and lots of evidence that is supporting the explanation of these changes. Also, if you are a family caregiver, if you've known anyone with Alzheimer's disease, you know this last part is how incredibly expensive this disease is because it is a disease of time. And it really, healthcare costs really are exorbitant for this disease specifically. So the prevalence, again, women, almost two-thirds of Americans with Alzheimer's disease are women. Older African Americans are twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. And Hispanics are about 1.5 times as likely to develop Alzheimer's or other dementias than older whites. So, looking again, disparities, there's no set reason. We can't say, oh, it's because of blank. It's because of this gene. It's because of this lifestyle factor. We don't know. Just the research has really shown that there is the disparities of this disease. So again, areas of research, things that people are looking into to figure out the why and also and then what. So it's yes, okay, and now what can we do about it? Is it lifestyle interventions? Is it awareness? Again, trying to figure out why these exist. So when we look at this world of Alzheimer's disease research, so let me just take a step back. So I've been in this field for over 20 years. I've always focused on Alzheimer's disease. My grandmother had Alzheimer's disease. I was very close to her. She was a wonderful woman, and I sort of got into this field because of her, trying to find a way to be able to, help others. And so I've been in this field for a while, and in the time that I've been here, I've heard researchers and doctors say, we're going to get a cure for this disease in 5 years. We're going to, find a medication and intervention in 5 years, 10 years. Well, it's been 20, and we don't have either. So you can look and you say, wow, what's really changed? Like, has anything changed? And the area where I think the most research has progressed is this area in actual diagnosis. So when my grandmother was diagnosed, it was in the late 1980s. She had had a significant stroke, but that was never accounted for in her diagnosis. So she was diagnosed with probable Alzheimer's disease, and that was it. Um, Realizing now, looking back on what I know, and I'm not a doctor, is realizing, okay, she probably would have been diagnosed with vascular dementia as well as Alzheimer's disease, a combination of the two. But back then, that never was even considered. So the world of the research and how it has changed is doctors are now able to diagnose earlier with increased confidence. We have more imaging tools. We have the ability to sort of like take that look inside a person's brain through imaging, biomarker samples, cerebral spinal fluid, to be able to see what is happening, and to see, is it Alzheimer's, or maybe it's frontal temporal dementia, or maybe it's Lewy body dementia. Again, where it's more specific and much more focused, in terms of what the diagnosis actually is. So when we think about, actually, I'll pop out one. Let me go back one. So the initial diagnosis for um, people with dementia, if we're talking about biomarkers or imaging, is going to be through a PET scan or an MRI, right? For the most part, that gives us the ability to look inside the brain. But just recently, literally, like just this year, um, is a blood test was FDA approved to diagnose Alzheimer's disease. It is a finger prick blood test, which I don't know how many people here would prefer a finger prick blood test or a lumbar puncture. Probably most likely the blood test, right? I think so. It's like much, a blood test or going to an MRI machine. Again, blood test, right? Like, feel free, take the blood. So it's going to really help with access, where we're going to be able to test people, to at a much wider area, and it's also cheaper. And right, that's what our health system prefers, especially insurance, right? They prefer when things are cheaper. So this is again brand new. Um, this test itself detects the two hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease. One, the phosphorylated tau, also known as p-tau 217, or the beta amyloid. So, but you can't, let's say, I can't just go and ask for this blood test. I have to have symptoms. I have to be over the age of 50 with symptoms of cognitive decline. Because it still just is showing if you have these markers. It's not, and just having these markers doesn't mean you have Alzheimer's disease. It's just, again, looking at risk and looking at, what are all the pieces of information? How can we put all of this together to be able to then say, based upon the results of the blood test, based upon your biomarkers of the tau and of the amyloid plaque, we are going to say that you have probable Alzheimer's disease and work from there. Um, but again, knowing that this blood test is just the beginning. So obviously, like the one thing too that I find really interesting about this is talking with some of the doctors that I work with, saying one of the other reasons why they don't just use this as a universal test is because all of the like the diagnostic places like Quest or the other diagnostic centers, the way they read these are different. So it's not quite standardized yet. Because again, this really just came out this year. So it'll be curious to see how this becomes much more specific, much more fine-tuned and focused and available to people for diagnosis. I know at UCLA, we actually were put on pause to even offer these tests. Because again, if any of you who have worked at, you've all worked at UCLA, so you understand all of the things that happen, all the things that take place, all of the many steps. So that is why it's not just a clear and cut, simple for your diagnosis. Also realizing how important it is for people to understand the results. Because it's not just a matter of, okay, so you um, have a disease or you do not have a disease. It's not that simple. It's more just looking at the biomarkers, at the levels of looking at what is your risk and what do we think, will be happening based upon the information that we're getting. So this is a bill through the Alzheimer's Association. It's called the ASAP Act, which they're trying to advocate to get these blood tests approved. Realizing that they are important. Yes, this is the first step, and this is the beginning, and it might be a little rough, right? Version 1.0 is a little rough, but how can we, if we advocate for this, if we be a voice to say we need these to be covered, and what is the purpose, and how will it help people? So, Alzheimer's Association is doing a lot of advocacy work on this, trying to get these to be covered through Medicare. And as we know, often once something is approved by Medicare, then other insurance companies will follow suit. So, some of the risk factors for Alzheimer's disease, age, greatest risk factor, gender, as we mentioned. The next is genetics, but genetics doesn't play as much of a role as everyone, I think, as people think. So persons with a family history are about 1.5 times greater risk. So again, it's risk, it's not predictive. The same is true for this gene, the APOE gene. So there are 3 different versions of this gene. There's APOE2, E3, and E4. And if you have, everyone gets a copy of this gene from mom and one from dad. So we all have 2 versions of it. So if you have, you can have an E2 and an E3, you could have 2 E4s, some sort of combination here. And understanding that if people have 2 E2s, they're at a decreased risk to develop Alzheimer's disease. If you have 2 E4s, you're at an increased risk. But, because there's going to be a but, because nothing is guaranteed in this world, what researchers have found is that it actually varies based upon gender and also ethnicity. So if you are an African American woman with 2 E4s, it's not as predictive that you will have develop Alzheimer's disease as it would be if you are a Caucasian woman with 2 E4s. So again, realizing that these things do matter. It's what makes all of us different. And it's not just that we look different, our bodies are actually different. The way our genes are actually different. And so the role of the APOE gene is varies. So this is something that people are able to test for like through, I think now defunct, but 23andMe, ancestry.com, when everyone was doing all of those tests, you could get these results. But most people don't know what they would mean. There are companies that are doing this testing. Um, and I spoke with a woman the other day who she um, did one of these tests, and she's like, "Oh, I don't have the Alzheimer's gene, so I'm fine." And I asked her, I said, "Well, what do you mean by that? What does it mean that you don't have the Alzheimer's gene?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't have that E4." So it doesn't mean that she's not going to develop Alzheimer's disease. It just means her risk is lower. Um, so there are people who have 2 E4s who could look at they're at the greatest risk, but they never develop it. So again, we're looking at risk. This is not predictive for the disease. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Since this is new with the blood testing, will there be any clinical trials that they need people to do this research?
Absolutely, yes. There are that currently at UCLA, we are not doing any studies on this, on the blood test specifically, but it is something that they are continually studying. And so, yeah, obviously, like participation in research is crucial to be able to move things, advance the research. I know at UCLA currently we are not, but that does not mean we will not. It just means currently we are not specifically on the blood test.
Yeah, I'm interested because I did a lot of clinical trials with UCLA while I was working there.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for being willing to participate. I think, all of us who work in this space, we understand the importance of it. And so I will talk a little bit about some of the trials that we are doing in terms of, what is happening and sort of what's on the horizon.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. So this is when we think about Alzheimer's disease, we think about risk reduction, right? We think about, okay, what can we do about it? So this is really one of the main, most impactful studies of recently. This is the Lancet Commission on Dementia Prevention, Intervention, and Care. The third version of it came out in 2024. So this is showing how our dementia risk is actually modifiable throughout our life. And so our early life, obviously early childhood education, that plays a big role in terms of our dementia risk. So while we can't go back in time and do something different about that, about what we did, what we can use in my mind whenever I mention this is talking about advocacy and policy, right? We can like use our power to vote for early childhood education, to explore this world of encouraging continued education for those under the age of 18. If you have families, read to your grandchildren, read to your children, participate in that world, and how important that really is. In midlife, this study showed all of these different factors, and again, you can see them on the screen, account for 30% of our dementia risk. So we're looking at making sure if you have hearing loss, address it. Get it taken care of. Get a hearing aid. Talk to your doctor about it. If you deal with depression, talk to your doctor. So it's not that once you have this, it's like, oh, well, all right, I'm depressed. I'm going to get Alzheimer's disease. It's address it, and then that risk goes down. So we see how there's a lot that people could do in midlife that can change the course. So again, my grandmother had Alzheimer's disease. Luckily, like my mom is doing well, and her sister's 91, who's doing well with no cognitive impairment. So we see how it can be like not necessarily family predictive. Again, we're looking at risk. So by being able to be a part of focusing on this area of lifestyle modifications, interventions, maybe I can change my risk as well. Over the age of 65, we're looking at air pollution, social isolation, and vision loss. So by combining all of these areas, we see how 45% of our dementia risk is in fact modifiable. So I always say this is the time to use this slide to take all the information that we've been hearing for years and actually start doing something about it. All right. So we know that to control our cholesterol, we know that it's important to be social and to be, active. So now's your chance. It's not just good for our hearts, but it's also good for our brains. Again, the Alzheimer's Association has their big campaign looking at exactly what came through from the Lancet Commission. How do we reduce our dementia risk? How do we keep our brains healthy? And be smart about it. Be smart about how what we choose today does impact our brains, not just the rest of our body. So the research, yes, Evelyn, yes, thank you.
Um, with the screen before this one,
Mhm.
with the food, because I think a lot of things we're eating with the processed foods that the preservatives and all the other chemicals they put in food, it's a big concern that's aiding to Alzheimer's disease.
So one of the things that's interesting and looking at, so if we us here in the United States, like we are worried, like we look at our, like you said, the preservatives that are put in food, the over processing of foods. Obviously it makes sense in terms of dementia risk, right? Or, but the thing is, lots of this information is actually cross-cultural across the globe. Because the Alzheimer's Association, so this was off of an initial study called the Worldwide Finger Study.
Mm.
That was that the first one? Yes, yes, yes. And showing it was a study that started in Finland, looking at all of these different factors and how can we reduce dementia risk. So now they're actually trying to take this information across the globe to see how can we change food, like, or encourage proper and healthy nutrition across the globe, because what we eat here is going to be very different than what somebody eats in Bolivia, which is going to be very different than what somebody eats in Russia,
I
which is going
think
to be
I
so.
think I think Europe, they eat totally different than what we eat because I was there for 2 weeks and they banned a lot of things that the US doesn't. I'm just comparing that country
Mhm.
because I was there. But it makes a difference of what we're consuming and the type of vegetables eating off the land. And we're taking seeds out. It's a lot of things going on that
Absolutely.
could be helpful to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's also part of the world of, like, we look at what we are able to be the consumers based upon of what we choose to eat.
Right.
That's why in the mornings when I'm driving to work and I see people, in line for like Jack in the Box or McDonald's, I always
Yeah.
yell to them. I'm like, "Don't do it! Don't do it! Turn your car around!" Um, you know, because, but also, I guess, Evelyn, to my point though, is understanding that these rates of Alzheimer's disease aren't United States specific.
No.
So that's why saying that yes, food is going to play a part, and Western diet is going to play a part, especially in terms of like our blood pressure and our diet and our weight and diabetes, but seeing how these are issues that are across the globe that also put anybody at a higher risk of dementia. So
Yeah.
it's having that more, I think that global awareness is what we're trying to do as well when we're
Mm.
talking about risk reduction.
Thank you.
So one of the areas that we are seeing with research with is this world of sleep. So when we sleep, it is our body's chance to, heal from the day before, right? From all the toxins, the environmental stresses that exist. And so this study showed that while people sleep, our brains are cleared out of the amyloid plaque that's naturally occurring, and it puts us at risk of dementia. And accumulation of this amyloid plaque puts us at risk of Alzheimer's disease. So those who have sleep apnea or other sleep disorders, over a 3-year period of time, actually had an increased level of the beta amyloid deposits. And part of the reason is while we sleep, there are these things in our brains called microglia. The microglia go through and they eat up the amyloid plaques in our brains. If any of you are scientists, pardon my very crude description of this, but I do community education. I am not a basic scientist. But essentially, if you, I always use the example, the Zambonis on ice skating rinks. So it's a big machine that goes and picks up all the ice off of the middle of a hockey game. So imagine if the Zamboni is there picking up the ice shredding, and then all of a sudden it stopped, and then it left, and it left a bunch of that shaved ice. And then the hockey game came back out. They did more. There's more shaved ice. The Zamboni only did about a third of the way, and they left it. So there's slowly just this accumulation of more and more shaved ice on the ice skating rink. So it's the same idea of what these microglia do. These microglia come in, they eat up the amyloid plaque, but if they're disrupted at night, they're leaving some leftovers behind. And if they're not able to fully clean it out, then your risk of dementia is going to be greater because of the accumulation of the amyloid plaque. So, seeing how if you have sleep disturbances, if you have problems with your sleep, to really get it addressed, to talk to your doctor, to figure out ways that you can sleep better, because it does make a difference in terms of our overall brain health. Hearing loss and Alzheimer's disease has been linked specifically in people who have cardiovascular risk factors as well as hearing loss. So it's the combination of the two. So if you have cardiovascular risk factors such as, high blood pressure, hypertension, and hearing loss, your risk for dementia nearly doubles. So as I say, check the ego at the door and get those hearing aids. We wear glasses, right? People are willing to wear glasses, but people aren't always so willing to wear hearing aids. So making sure that we do uh, get our hearing checked, take care of that. I see a note in the chat. Does napping clear out the plaques, or is it only done when you're sleeping for hours? It's the deep REM sleep. So that's when that happens. It's when you're really in that deep sleep. Napping is good, but napping should also be limited. It should be time limited, about like 20 minutes, half hour, not the extended period of naps, because then that's going to have a greater chance of impacting your overall nighttime sleep. And that's really where you get the most restorative sleep is at night. So I hope that answers your question there, Gloria. Yeah, Evelyn.
Couldn't they also include when you have a physical to have that implemented with the hearing loss test?
In terms of what, having the hearing loss test happen during a physical, is that what you're asking?
To avoid from happening or to keep a check on your hearing in the
Yes,
physical.
yes, but I know lots of people, I find it hearing very funny because people are almost stubborn when it comes to hearing.
Mm,
They're not quite as willing to get their hearing checked or to acknowledge the hearing loss.
mm.
Again, like glasses have become pretty standard. We know if I can't see, I need glasses. It just is, right? A plus B. That's a pretty simple thing. If I don't have my glasses on, I can't see you guys, or I can't, but you are a little blurry and it's not good. Um, but with hearing, there's still, I think, some sort of a social stigma. Hearing aids are for old people. I don't need that. I'm good. So part of it is educating people, just saying, hey, they're connected. If you can't hear, if you can't see, you're not going to have the same information. Yeah, Costco does free hearing tests for members. Exactly. Costco is great for resources. If you are a veteran, the VA is great for hearing aids. So it's people are stubborn, right? It's also the same world of people know that they shouldn't have that cheeseburger. But let me see that line at In-N-Out's always pretty long. So, we know one thing, but we still do another, just because we are people who have choice, which is all, the pros and cons, right?
I had
So
the
let me push.
Costco. I didn't know they did.
Yeah, yeah, Costco's a pretty good resource. Except one thing too about Costco is making sure that the hearing aids actually fit your ears, because all of our ears are different sizes. So there's weird things that you don't always
So
realize.
they do the hearing test or just offer the hearing aids?
I think both.
Oh, okay. I'm
Mhm.
gonna check that out. Thank you.
So when we think about interventions for Alzheimer's disease, here are a list of basic FDA-approved treatments. These have been around for a while. Aricept, my grandmother was on Aricept. So like I said, she was diagnosed in the late 80s, early 90s. So that's been around for a long time. So The Namenda is came FDA approved in the United States in about 2000. And so for the most part, these are just, the basic medications. The thing that is important to know is that these do not slow the course of Alzheimer's disease. They are what we call symptomatic treatments. So your symptoms are your changes in cognition, your confusion, disorientation, cloudy judgment. So these medications help to remove some of that confusion and that disorientation. But the disease is still processing, or progressing. Um, so when we look at, if we're looking at sort of like a clinical stage of Alzheimer's disease, when someone is cognitively normal, as I always joke, hopefully where we all are is in this stage of cognitively normal, our levels of amyloid plaque are actually building. Our levels of the tau tangles are also building while we are still cognitively normal. So people who are working, people who just retired, people maybe even raising children. So in this world of cognitively normal. As, say, brain structure changes, as the symptoms start to occur, we see that's when someone would be what we call mild cognitive impairment, and then it goes on actually to dementia. So if we want to intervene and actually change the course of the disease, so we need to get people here in this cognitively normal area. So where current FDA approved treatments is there are infusion medications. So these medications, Leqembi or lecanemab and donanemab, were FDA approved in 2023 and 2024. So they are for people with early stage Alzheimer's disease or mild cognitive impairment. So again, early. Lecanemab is biweekly. And then after 18 months, the patient goes on to a once a month infusion. So these are infusion medications. So you have to come to UCLA or wherever the medical center is to receive this medication. Donanemab is every 4 weeks. And then there are maintenance doses for each. It was just recently approved for lecanemab to actually do in-home injections after the first 18 months. So this, hopefully, the goal of this is actually it clears the amyloid as well as improves cognitive functioning. So it is mostly covered by Medicare. One of the side effects is what is called ARIA, which is brain swelling at a specific site of the brain. But people have they do MRIs to test for this and to check for it. Yeah, Bertha.
Uh, Thank you. I took my husband yesterday to see a neurologist, and he explained, he said that my husband has mild cognitive dysfunction,
Mm-hmm.
and that he explained it to us that about these injections that they give them. But he said my husband is not a candidate for that because he has heart problems.
Mm-hmm.
He got a heart surgery in 2022.
Okay.
So he recommended to go and take an MRI, which I don't agree. If there is nothing that can be done, what's the use? So what do you think about that?
So, well, first of all, again, I'll give my disclaimer. I am not a doctor. Um, but lots of the questions really do come down to personal decisions. Again, I work with families all the time, and people I think are in often very similar situations, such as yours, Bertha, where it's a matter of, okay, so if we're not eligible for these infusion medications, which are the only ones that actually change the course of the disease, then it's why? Like, why do the imaging? Why do the hours-long neuropsychological testing? Like, why? Why put ourselves through this? Why deal with the risks? And that is ultimately a personal choice. And that is where it comes up with saying, between you and your husband to say, will the imaging give us information that we feel like we need? And if the answer is no, then you make that decision.
Yeah.
But because of the fact that, like, if he's not, and with these medications, because of the side effects, and because again, they're still new, is we have at the Easton Center, we have reviews twice a month where they review all the potential cases to see how to select people in who would have the most benefit and to like not have people come in who may have the most side effects, right? Because we don't want side effects. That's our whole
Right.
goal. So really looking at it, I say, is that discussion between you and your husband and your family to see what do you care to do.
Mhm.
Honestly, I I work with lots of our neurologists, and they have said before that one of the things that they always recommend is the world of movement and exercise, that can be such good therapy,
Mhm.
and actually could be maybe better than some of the other medications. It's just
Right.
like, so what are you going to incorporate? And I look at it like it's these are very personal decisions because you're right. Like,
Yeah.
why?
That's exactly what we saw the doctor on Friday. I'm sorry, Friday, and yesterday we saw his geriatric, and I told her what the neurologist had said, and she told me the same. I agree with you. And if he's 89 years old, and he's in pretty good shape,
Mhm.
but he forgets a lot of things, and sometimes he has not good judgment.
Mhm.
And she told me just have him to keep moving,
Mhm.
and the rest of the things, he eats well, he sleeps well, and so
Yeah.
she told me I agree with you. It's not necessary that he goes through all this. He is already getting infusions because he has also multimyeloma. I
Mm.
asked the neurologist what was the cause of his. He said, I don't know, but I will assume that because of all the different problems that he has had, chronic kidney, the multiple myeloma, and so that has accelerated his
Yeah.
problems with the mild dementia that he has, which over time it can increase.
And when I work with families and I talk to families a lot, I say the thing that matters the most is what is your and your, in this case, your husband's quality of life, and what are you managing? That's what we all care about the most, right? We all
Yeah,
care about, I want to live a good life. So how am I going to do this? And for some people, they choose to do the medications, they choose to do the additional imaging because it gives them information that they feel that they need. Others, no, because well, if you're already dealing with other stuff, and do we need one more thing? Do we need another doctor's appointment? Do we need another image? So that's why lots of this is such a personal decision. And definitely, supporting you as a family. So I want to move on just so I just looked at the clock, and I always have so much
okay.
information. I include this. You will get all of these slides, whether I cover the slide or whether I don't. I'm going to send it all to you
Mhm.
after. So at UCLA, oops, actually changing that one, is that we have this amyloid immunotherapy care program. So where it's looking at these new medications, um, really, again, we have a nurse practitioner who is the main person in charge of this, who, not in charge, but she's the one this is all she does, is focusing on this program to be able to provide, these potentially cutting edge treatments to, to families, and also providing the supportive care, and then also working at precision medicine for this. So there's the information. There is the phone number for that program, if it is something that is applicable to you. And like I said, you'll get all of these slides. So shifting gears a little bit to talk about just very briefly sort of what Evelyn mentioned earlier about research at UCLA. So what I'm going to show you in the next few slides is just to give you sort of that well-rounded idea of all the research, all the different types of research that we are doing. Sometimes people think research is a drug, research is an intervention. But especially if any of you did work on a research side, you know that that's not true. So we have different types where we are looking. This one is just focus groups, having conversations with caregivers, people with early memory loss, about research. So it's asking, it's like, all right, Evelyn, why have you participated in research and why are you not? All right, Marilyn, what did you do? What are your thoughts on research? All right, George, give us your thoughts. Because we need to learn. This is how researchers learn. This is how science moves forward, is by asking these questions. So again, this is interviews, much different than a drug, right? So realizing that how important all these different types of research are. This is one that's actually in partnership with Boston University, where we are studying centenarians. So people over the age of 100 asking, trying to figure out how have you made it to 100 and like, again, what's your secret to life? But understanding memory and aging and how it changes for so many people or how it's so different. Looking at biological factors that might protect the brain from Alzheimer's and other forms of dementias. So, Aisha is our lead coordinator for this study. And again, having these different types of discussions. So we see all of this information when we look about research. This is a helping to modulate memory with low intensity focused ultrasound. Again, for people diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment or mild Alzheimer's disease. And seeing how using this focused ultrasound can actually affect the brain and in the hopes of potentially improving memory over time. So realizing that if we're going to cure this disease, we're going to understand this disease, it's not necessarily going to be in the same way as other types of illnesses. It's not just going to be the straight pill. We have to look outside the box. We have to see what other options are there because the brain is so complex and the brain is such a mystery to researchers. So seeing again, how can we try to really intervene? This is a study on polyphenols and cognitive decline. So again, we're looking at health. We're looking at what we eat. How does this impact us? A friend of mine is actually in this study, and she loves just the idea of being able to be a part of it, to do something that is health focused, not a medication intervention, and seeing how can for those who are at risk of developing Alzheimer's because they have a family member with the disease, seeing, like, does this help? So again, looking at this global, larger world of research, not just here is a drug, you're going to get the placebo, or you're going to get the regular, or you're going to get the medication, and seeing what else is there.
So,
Yeah.
question.
Mhm.
Is it also they can research with doing something holistically?
Sorry, you have a little bit of an echo. So what was that first part of your question?
Are they considering doing holistically healing?
So what I am showing you here today is a small little snippet of some of the research that's happening. There is so much either through, you know, neurology, geriatrics, biology. We're actually working with even with the engineering department on research. So there's so many different departments at UCLA that are doing Alzheimer's type research. I don't even know of all of it. So I just can't. So, but I know like psychiatry department does a lot in terms of looking at more like a holistic, more natural supplements, or there was something a few years ago looking at pomegranate juice. So, and these come around again, research, they have their cycles where just because there isn't something now doesn't mean that there isn't going to be something. Could be literally in the planning phases now, just it hasn't been approved. So then I don't have that information.
Okay, thank you.
So oops, I don't have that one slide. Okay, I thought I had a slide. Again, this is another one where we're looking at trying to figure out, learning more about the healthy aging brain, trying to see, you know, by looking at the brain, how does it change? Because it's very different. Again, it's like it's an area, it's something that doesn't regularly get imaged. I've never had my brain imaged. I don't know about any of you. So we don't know what our brains are like and how they change, because it's just not something that is done. So seeing how can we use these amyloid as well as tau PET scans to get more information and to really do more about basic memory and aging. So I actually don't, sort of kicking myself. I don't have the one slide that I thought I did on this one, but when my contact information at the end has our Easton Center web page, and in there we actually have what we call a potential participant pool. So that's to say, yeah, I'm interested in research. I don't know what you have currently. I don't know if I'm eligible or not, but let me know and keep me in mind. So it's a really basic sheet, just asking questions to see, you know, what would be like your inclusion and exclusion criteria for studies. And then if something comes up and we say, hey, there's a study, and it looks like Lamb might be a candidate, let's reach out to Lamb and give her a phone call. So it's much more of a you put your name in the hat and then we call when the time comes that something comes about. So I will include that information when I send all this back to Aisha to be able to share with all of you, because I don't have that slide on here. Darn. So now I want to just shift gears in my last minutes. Lamb, I have until 11:15, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, just making sure I had my time right. Okay, good. All right. So looking at this world of caregiving, so understanding that those of you, if you are caregivers, how this is a different world and this does take more out of you, and understanding like really what is your best support system. So as I've mentioned throughout this presentation, if we're looking at Alzheimer's care, diagnosis is important, because what we want to know is what is the disease, what's happening, what can allow us to rule out other causes of cognitive impairment. And again, this is getting a thorough diagnosis. And it could be, you know, a vitamin deficiency, could be a thyroid problem. But this is why you go to the doctor and you have these initial conversations to look at what might be the cause of the cognitive impairment. It allows you to also begin to make appropriate treatments to see if the infusion therapy would be appropriate or not. And then gives you a chance to make a plan. Sometimes, you know, again, you realize if someone is diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, maybe they're not going to want to travel too much, because with that disease, there's going to be more physical struggles. And they realize, you know, it's not worth the risk of a fall if I'm out in Europe on the cobblestone streets or something. But someone with Alzheimer's disease, early stages, well, they can still go and because it's less physical changes. So again, this is why having a diagnosis is important. And also, we encourage families to create your proper care team. So primary care, geriatrician, a psychiatrist or geriatric psychiatrist, and a neurologist. For the most part, if you have a neurologist, you'll see the neurologist once, twice a year for the first few years. And then after that point, they pretty much pass off care to your primary or to your geriatrician. And then they will do the continual monitoring of care. A psychiatrist or a geri psych is going to help with medications, especially if there's behavioral issues related to the dementias, and really being able to fine tune those medications. But you create your team at UCLA. You know, we have nurse practitioners who also could be there, who could be part of your care team. And then, of course, as a caregiver, is finding support so you know that you're not alone and that there are people who understand. Specifically at UCLA, so I am with the Easton Center. And so we are under the Department of Neurology. So I said at the beginning, diagnosis, disease management, the anti-amyloid therapy. But then there is the Department of Geriatrics that have the Alzheimer's and Dementia Care Program. So they really do more like post care, post diagnosis. They have nurse practitioners, social worker, plus 24/7 access to clinical care. So if you are caring for somebody with dementia, I would highly recommend that you get a referral into this program. They'll be able to help monitor you and care for you, both of you as a dyad, throughout the course of the disease. They have this great online education series, which is open to everybody. It's at this point, they're all just embedded videos. Wonderful caregiver training videos as well. So for additional education, and that obviously website that is there. And then there is this new program through Medicare, which is called Guide. So this is funded until 2032. It began in 2024. And so this is specifically looking to see how can Medicare help to improve the quality of life for people living with dementia. So looking at the world of reducing burden and strain on family caregivers, and also trying to delay institutionalization for as long as possible. So this model itself, the guide model, was really based off of the UCLA model of the Alzheimer's and Dementia Care Program. This is just now Medicare is actually paying for some of this. So if you are a over the age of 65 with a dementia diagnosis, you may have received a letter in the mail talking about the guide program. And so I highly recommend that you connect to look for the support. They provide, again, lots of the same 24-hour services as the dementia care program. But really, one of the great benefits too is the respite services. It's up to, I think it's actually here in LA, it's like 2735, I think is the official number annually. And that money can go to daycare, an adult daycare, or in-home care. Which any of that other care, that's either through long-term care insurance or private pay, because nothing else pays for this care. So it's a great option if you are caring for a person with dementia. And then it connects with community resources. So I will include information, the contact information for this and for the dementia care program also in my email, so you can have, again, a good resource for you. The eligibility for this, again, confirmed diagnosis of Alzheimer's, Medicare A and B, not under managed care plan yet. If you are UCLA, our program takes you in no matter what. But let's say if people get, let's say Cedars-Sinai is a site for the guide program, but theirs is structured a little different because they don't have the dementia care program that we do. So that's why more of this eligibility is not so, if you're UCLA, that sort of doesn't matter as much. So because we just roll everything in. But again, looking at this way of being able to support family caregivers through the course of this disease. At one of the things that I mentioned at the beginning, and again, in partnership with the Dementia Care Program, is that we offer these 10 virtual caregiver support groups. So if you are caring for somebody, please contact me if you are open to getting support. They're wonderful, and they're casual. So you come when you're able, and if you can't come, you can't come, and that's fine because we understand life happens. And they're free. We love free. So getting these, also we offer educational events throughout as well. So I like this quote from former First Lady Rosalind Carter. That says there are only four kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. So we all
Wow.
fall into one, two, three, maybe even all four of those categories in our lives. So realizing that you are truly not alone. I think the world of being a caregiver, you may feel very isolated, but you're not. There's so many others who are really experiencing almost the same thing as you on a daily basis. So who are the caregivers? We look at, this is from the Family Caregiver Alliance. 20 to 25% of family members are involved with elder care. And the majority are women. Again, I don't think that's too much of a surprise. A quarter of women caregivers are caring for a parent as well as young children, so as we call the sandwich generation. And they also 50% works outside of the home. So they're dealing with all of this, thinking all the different hats that they are juggling to be able to continue to provide care. And 72% of caregivers care for either a parent, a step parent, a mother-in-law, or a father-in-law. So really the majority is for the generation above. A typical caregiver is a 46-year-old woman who works outside of the home, spends 20 hours a week caring for her mom, and is either married or living with a partner. So again, when we're looking at the world of services and how can we help families, it's reaching these people. It's reaching, those who really need that support, but who may not know how to ask or may not even know that sort of services exist. Because if you're caring for your parent as well as little kids, I guarantee you don't really have time to come to an education event like this. So how do we help and spread the word and share the information to others? Um, Dementia caregiving it's longer caregiving duration than non-dementia caregivers, just because of the time of the disease. Alzheimer's disease is 7 to 12 years. It could be 2, it could be up to 20. So it's a very long time where you are caring and the care changes. Like it's not, people will say to me, oh, I'm not really a caregiver because I don't live with my dad, or I don't bathe my dad, or I don't do this with my dad. I said, no, you are still a caregiver. You are still worried. You are still concerned. You are still helping to coordinate. You don't have to be providing the hands-on care to be considered a family caregiver. Um, Looking at the long goodbye of this disease is really one of the big emotional challenges for families, as you see someone slowly fade over time. So while caring for a loved one, caregivers often stop taking care of themselves. And it's oh, when was the last time you were at the doctor's for your needs, not for the person that you're caring for? When was the last time, you actually got that shoulder pain looked at? It's been there for a while, but you just keep pushing it off because it'll just go away. But then they don't always just go away. So we see how illness can affect the greater family, realizing that it can be, and it often is described as a difficult relationship, difficult experience. I know this one woman, I find her amazing because she looks at caring for her mom as a gift. She's like, it is a gift that I have this opportunity. No, most people don't think that way. Lots of people, they struggle with the world of caregiving. And I'm always so impressed by this woman and the peace that she brings to groups, and understanding how for her, this is the best way to honor her mother. But so many others are just sad and frustrated, and it's emotionally exhausting. And we find that the positive relationship is actually the positive parts of the relationship are forgotten. Those good times are forgotten. It's much more of a burden than understanding. It's like, oh, it's my mom. People still need their moms. You still need your partner, and seeing how those things change. So some of the signs of caregiver burnout, and we say caregivers face this all the time. And then it's the world of, okay, and then what? Yeah, you're right. I don't sleep well. I'm highly stressed, very irritable. I feel terrible. And then what? I still have to show up. So this is why we say you may not be able to change your caregiving situation, but what we can change are the tools that you care with. I often teach like 6-week, a 3-week course all about caregiving and giving you tools to be able to talk better, to be able to engage better, to ask more, to understand the disease. So when they ask you the same question time and time again, you have more grace and more peace to be able to answer it. than just the frustration of, I've already told you, don't you remember? Because the answer is no, they don't. There is a disease that is causing these changes. And what we don't want are for the caregivers to start to isolate, to start to withdraw, because you need everyone else, right? You need the people who are going to bring you joy and who are going to give you support. So some little tips I like to give as I wrap up this presentation is, and these are if you're a caregiver or if you're not, we can all benefit from these tips. So oftentimes we have things in our lives that are fairly overwhelming. We have lists and tasks and desires of things that are, that can go on and on and on. So how can we actually create goals and be successful in what we want to do? So this is a thing called a SMART goal, where you want it to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So it's not, I'm going to clean out my closet. Because, oof, right? That's a task, cleaning out a closet. But what you're going to say is on Tuesday, I'm going to spend a half hour at 2 o'clock organizing the things that are hanging up in the closet. Quick, short, simple. That's it. Half hour goes by, done. You literally close the door on it. And then maybe next Tuesday, you do it again, where it's really just breaking down the overwhelming tasks that we have, breaking down, finding the way of getting support, but making it be more of what we call a SMART goal. I love this one. This one I actually do personally. A 1 minute rule. So on a day where you find any task that could be finished in 1 minute, you think I can't do anything in a minute. Oh yes, we can. We can all do something in 1 minute. So you set a timer and you set a timer for 1 minute and you see what you can do. Is it answering that email that's been haunting you? Is it, I know I'm guilty about this, picking up all the shoes that are around the house? I come in and I take off my shoes and then I put on other shoes. And then I have ultimately by the end of the day, I have like 4 different pairs of shoes around the house, sandals or slippers or tennis shoes. And if you don't attend to it, it becomes overwhelming. But you can pick all those up in less than a minute. And now, oh, I don't have those there staring at me anymore. And as a caregiver, you often have all of these things to do. You go to CVS and you get prescriptions and you have the bags and the piles and the stuff. Just 1 minute to go through to open those up, take them out, put them in the cabinet, throw all the other stuff away. But you time it. So then it actually, again, becomes something that is attainable. Really look at resources. So finding these ways to find professionals who can help. I know if you're connected, obviously you are here with the ERRC. They can help you get these resources. You can reach out to me. I'm happy to be able to help you find resources. Caregiving doesn't and should not happen alone. There are professionals who do these things, either free services or fee for service, and finding the way to get support. You don't know what's available because you've never done this before. So like just anything, like first time you've ever done your taxes, did you know how to do them? No idea, right? So it's the same thing. You've never done this before, so you don't know what is available. So reach out and find the different support and services. And then here we go. It is 11:16. Okay, so this is our contact information for the Easton Center. This is our website where there's all the information about all of our trials, all of different research that's happening. This is my email and my phone number. Reach out to me. Honestly, please tell me that you came to this presentation, and I'm happy to be able to be a resource to you in any way that I can. So, any questions?
Yes. What percentage do you know of with Alzheimer's disease with the reverse? They they were healed. Is there any numbers you have?
None.
None. Wow.
No, because if you have dementia type symptoms, and if you actually get better, and if you actually reverse the symptoms, you never had Alzheimer's disease. You had something else that was causing those symptoms.
Sometimes, okay.
So if someone has Alzheimer's disease, there is no cure from Alzheimer's disease. You could have, again, the cognitive complaints, but then let's say it was a vitamin deficiency, it was a thyroid problem, it was medication interaction, which I do a whole nother presentation just on that kind of stuff that talks about like normal memory as we age, what to be able to see. But for Alzheimer's specifically or other diagnosed dementias, no, there are no cures, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
It would be great if you would give us a presentation about the interaction of the medications to Alzheimer's or just dementia.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bertha. Yeah, I'll talk to Lam and Aisha and see what else we could do, something along those lines. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that would be great.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. It was very informative. We appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And if we have no other questions, I just want to thank you so much, Monica, for taking time out of your day to do this for us. This is an important topic, and I think it's not often addressed, the whole caregiving aspect of it all. Is there any other questions that we have for Monica before we end this call?
All right.
All right. And as a reminder, we will send out Monica's information in a follow-up email that will include the slides from this talk as well as the recording. And if anyone's interested, the ERRC and the Retirees Association have a signature event for retirees next Wednesday in person at the James Bridges Theater at Melnitz Hall from 1:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. And that's the Paley Archive will be joining us to talk about the greatest moments in television history.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Be well. Have a good week. And let
All
me know
right.
if you need anything.
All right.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
All right. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
the opportunity,
Monica.
Lam. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.